The next speaker is Mr. Mike Bond.
Good evening, Dr. Pilch and board members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. For those of you who don't know what I do, I am a market president for Guarantee Bank, and so by virtue of my profession, am firmly entrenched in the business community, on whose commercial real estate and MLO will impose a disproportionate burden. So you'd think when I broach the subject with my customers and with colleagues in the community, there would be overwhelming and insurmountable opposition to an MLO. That just isn't the case. To be clear, this is anecdotal, it's not statistical, but the vast majority of business owners that I interact with recognize that while frugality is a critical piece to both private and public finance, you can generate only a limited amount of savings on the expense side of the ledger sheet before you start impacting services. At some point, you must focus on top-line revenue. It's a paradigm shift, and it is evident to me that the business community is ready to embrace it. No longer is MLO a four-letter word that scares existing and prospective businesses. Quite the contrary, this very specific MLO, well managed with the same level of frugality that the district has already demonstrated, will send a very clear message to our existing and prospective businesses that a robust economy is only sustainable with an educated workforce, and that starts with District 6. And yes, there will be opposition from the same core that simply don't want any tax increase, and I'm not unsympathetic to their call, but I believe the time is finally upon us, that the business community is far more visionary now than it ever has been. I urge you all to adopt the language. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Steve LaForest. Welcome.
I would like to start by thanking the school board and Dr. Pilch for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Steve LaForest, and I have lived and worked here in Greeley for 20 plus years now. My wife Megan and I have raised our 3 daughters here, and they all attended District 6 schools. Graduated and actually rose above heredity, thank you to the school district. A school district is the nucleus of any community. With this said, if we as community members want to move our community forward, we must have a top-notch school district. I realize we are not what some people call a top-notch school district as yet. However, the things that are taking place in our schools with the limited amount of funds they have received are incredible. I realize this mill levy override is just a drop in the bucket compared to what our school district needs, but it is essential that this be approved for the children of School District 6. It is unfortunate that we have a state that puts education that not very high on the list of items to receive funding. Therefore, we must look to our community to help our children get a great education. As you know, the state has cut $25 million a year from the District 6 budget. This is a huge hit to a district our size, especially with no previous MLOs in the most recent past. Inflation seems to go up every year, yet there have been no additional funds for our school district to fight inflation. Can you imagine what your family budget would be like if you lost a significant amount of your salaries, in addition to the cost of goods going up at the same time? I am sure we would all be having a tough time financially if this happened to us. Now more than ever is the time for the school board to recommend a mill levy override to our community. Kids don't have a choice where they go to school and what kind of education they receive. However, we as parents, grandparents, and our community have a say in what our schools will look like and the quality of education our children receive. It is our duty as adults in this community and you as a school board to recommend a mill levy override for this community. With this said, how much longer can our school district continue after cutting as much expense from the budget as they have without getting assistance from our community? Quite frankly, is there any better investment than investing in our children for the future as well as ours? After all, previous generations invested in us when we were kids, and now is the time we need to support our children of the School District 6. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Robert Weiss. I didn't, Mr. Welcome.
I didn't sign up to speak, but now I will.
Okay.
I am a parent, Chapelo, and I see the wonderful things that the folks at Chapelo do with so little. I also know that Chapelo is the Art Magnet School, and the Art Magnet School has a lot of the art programs that normal schools used to have. And so I really support this initiative, and I hope you go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't realize that would be a surprise. I have another person's name, Karla Heine. They may have phoned earlier to get a spot in line. Ms. Barbara Broderius is here.
Good evening, Dr. Pilch and President DeWitt and members of the Board of Education. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about my support of the mill levy override. I also have kids at Chapelo, one that just finished up and will be going into Greeley West, so big step, and my son is in middle school there. And obviously, there are so many things that our district could use the funding for, and as I read through what the items on the resolution were, I agree totally that, and the top one was security, and with the events happening recently, that's a huge issue, and with my daughter attending a bigger school, it's a huge issue. So I just want to voice my support as a parent and also as a volunteer that you pass and put it on the ballot in November. I also wanted to commend you on all the work that you did to come up with the resolution. Getting the public input was wonderful, and I think that will increase the support to it. And I just, want you to know that if we can do anything, as volunteers in the community, just let us know, and you have our support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Sandy Bright.
President DeWitt, School Board, and Dr. Pilch. I'm Sandy Bright. I have been in the Greeley area, now living in this area for 61 years. I have been in business for 43 years in this area, and I have preschools and school-age centers that most of you are aware of. I want to say that I'm fully in support of the mill levy override. I feel very much that the process that was used to arrive at this decision has been an amazing one. It's been very open, very considerate of everyone's opinions. It has been broad-reaching. I think many people have had their input listened to, and many times in the past I think people were opposed to this concept, but I can't see any reason why not to put this on the ballot for this fall. I want to say that Weld County is the only county, I believe, in the entire nation that is debt-free. We pay cash for our buildings. We are very proud of the fact that we have no debt, and yet when I look at the state spending per pupil for District 6 in comparison to other districts, it makes me really sad. For example, I was shocked to find out that Platte Valley, right down the road, wonderful area around Kersey, has a per pupil funding of $9,906 per year with their mill levy override. Greeley, on the other hand, has $6,857. And yet Greeley is supposed to do amazing things without the additional funds. And I think they do amazing things, but I think that they deserve to have our vote of confidence to do a better job. Also, Gilchrist RE1, my mother was a teacher there for a number of years. Gilchrist has a PPR of $9,103. Again, we have $6,857. I think it's well past time for us to step up and say, we value the children in our community, we value education. The return on investment is amazing, and education is the key. I graduated from UNC after attending Franklin as an elementary school, Heath as a junior high, Greeley West, I was in the second graduating class. My brother was in the first, and they have their 50-year reunion this year. I'm a proud person to be a product of Greeley schools, and I want to be extremely proud again, and I think that the mill levy override is absolutely one of the best steps we can take to get to that point again. When I graduated from UNC, just one little thought, Greeley-Evans was impossible to get into as a teacher. Impossible. I remember you had to go to the hinterlands and do your time and come back with a whole lot of experience on your resume before you could even be considered. Let's go back to those days. Let's have this be the premier Colorado Teachers College city where we can have the best teachers, the best education, and be extremely proud of what we're doing for our community and our future and our children. Thank you.
Ms. Bright, thank you very much. The next speaker is Diego Ruiz. Welcome.
All right, good evening. My name is Diego Ruiz, and I am a student at Greeley West High School. I'm here on behalf of my own opinions as a student of what I think of the mill levy override, and I'm going to be talking about just in general how I feel the mill levy override should be used in order for it to be successful and to make the most use of that money, and also why it should be on that ballot tonight. So I remember the first time Mr. DeWitt came and talked to me about the mill levy override, and I had no idea what this mill levy override was. So that's one of the things that I think needs to change. Because as a student who just realized, how important this mill levy override is and what kind of change it could really create in this community, I think it's important that if you want to tackle such a big problem, we need to go straight to the source and go to the students. Because if we want to figure out how to make the most efficient use of that money, it's important to go to the students and see, what do you think will have the biggest impact on your future? What do you guys think is most important? And I was given one of those surveys that said, if this mill levy override was passed, how do you think it should be used? And this brings me to my biggest point, which is one of the items on there was to, let me check. It's to attract and retain talent by competing with surrounding school districts. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we need this mill levy override, because attracting talent on that survey was meant to talk about solely teachers, I believe. And I think that attracting talent also means retaining the students that we have here by creating opportunity for them. And if we want talent to stay in Greeley, we need to create more opportunities for them to grow. And I think it's the best investment that we can make with that money, and it'll have a direct impact on our community as well. In my own personal experience, I've been using textbooks. I don't really check what the date is, but when I have checked, I realize that it's probably decades old, probably 10 years old, and I'm pretty sure it was a history textbook, so that's not good. So yeah, talking to my friends, we think textbooks is a huge thing. Technology is a huge thing because, like someone else mentioned today, I believe it was Mrs. Mueller, is that we need to create students that are ready for the 21st century. And that means having them be in contact with technology and how to incorporate it into education. Another personal experience I had is with surrounding school districts. I went to state FBLA and state DECA this year, and talking with other students, our district took 4 students to state FBLA. And I talked to Cherry Creek, I believe, in Boulder, and each one of their schools individually takes about 50 people. And yeah, I mean, I experienced my own fair share of teenage angst against that because I felt like I was at a disadvantage because our school doesn't have the resources, and I don't blame the school, I love my school, and I love everything my advisor does for us and our principal. But I believe there's a lot more that we could do if we tackle the big things and take that money, invest it directly into our schools, and then that'll trickle down, affect the clubs, And eventually, if we talk about FBLA, for example, that's just a business club and program, and that will come back and affect this community. If we want to retain that talent, we want to grow those leaders and have them stay here in Greeley and directly affect our community. I think it's important for it to be successful that there's a system of transparency. So how is this money going to be used, and where is it going to go towards? I think it's important for the voters, because if we want, it's all about trust especially. And as a student, now that I'm engaged and I've been empowered and inspired, I'd like to know what's going to be done with this money, because then I can, pay my respects and say thank you, because if I don't know what my school board is doing for me, what all the troubles that you guys are going through to investigate this and put it as something on a ballot, best way that we can partner is just to be informed. I'd like communication. Those surveys that I was talking about, I think they should go to clubs, organizations, and that all students should be engaged and empowered by having a say and an opinion, and even just being conscious and realizing what that money is going towards and how it's affecting our education. Oh yeah, and I wanted to mention, I think I've ran out of time, but I'll be quick. I've experienced a lot of pride in my school district. As part of the District 6 Council Student Reps President, we took a tour of Prairie Heights, and I felt a lot of pride just being able to see that school. I've never experienced such a huge school, and it creates a huge contrast to other schools I've been in. And I'm a big psychology buff, and something that we know is that your environment shapes who you are. And I believe that it's very important to take that money and do things like Prairie Heights, because if we invest in the environment, we're investing in the students, and you're going to see direct impact on that. I think it's important because I did my own research today, and I looked up about John Evans and how the school, it was over 50 years old and it was getting run down. And I think that over time, students' test scores also went down, because if you can't take pride in your school, then how can you take pride in your own education? I'm blessed, to have parents that have shown me what's important. Education is important, and I have teachers that are great, but I think the biggest purpose of the school board in our community is to be able to empower and awaken passion within our leaders, and there's so many ways that we can use this money to empower leaders. So thank you very much for allowing me to state my opinions, and I urge you, I think it's of the utmost importance to pass this mill levy override. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I do want to reinforce that this young man is the president of our Council of Student Representatives, and he's presented himself, I think, fairly well tonight. So thank you for that.